Joining me now, General Jack Keane, Chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, former Vice Chief of Staff for the Army. General, good to see you tonight. And I read your entire testimony, and it was a devastating assessment of how we got to the place we are now. You put on the map the spread of radical Islam under this president in various regions. Talk about Iran, its growth of power, ISIS and its birth and expansion, and Al-Qaeda and its expansion under this president. And at the end, you attribute this to a failed strategy and an unwillingness, as General Flynn did, to name, identify, and be real about the enemy we face, which is?
Radical Islam, absolutely. And, the harsh reality is that this administration saw what was happening in the Middle East with the strategic surprise of the Arab Spring, and as opposed to engaging that, because the people wanted political reform, social justice, and economic opportunity, nobody was demonstrating for jihad or radical Islam. They disengaged from that. Pivoting to the east was a stated policy. But the radical Islamists, they used, Megan, the Arab Spring as an accelerant to take advantage of the political upheaval and the social chaos so they could advantage themselves and gain influence and control in these areas. And that's why that map looks like that in Northern Africa and Western Africa, in the Middle East, and it spreads all the way to South Asia as well. Radical Islam has increased fourfold in 5 years, ISIS 10 times since 2011 when it only numbered 3,000, and Iran has influence in the capitals or control of Beirut, Lebanon, Damascus, Syria, Baghdad, Iraq, and now Sana'a, Yemen, and of course Gaza and Israel.
You went through in your testimony the number of either missed opportunities or just general reticence to get involved when we could have made a real difference in stifling this growing cancer. You talk about Iran, you talked about obviously Iraq and ISIS, and told a very interesting anecdote because you helped a lot in Iraq. You were the man who designed the surge strategy. I know you're very humble about this, but you did it. That won that conflict. And you talked about how in 2008 you were made privy to communications from the enemy, from Al-Qaeda in Iraq, about where they stood then before President Obama decided to pull all the troops out. And tell us what you told the lawmakers today.
Yeah, that's a fact. I did many assessments for General Petraeus in Iraq during the surge period in 7 and 8 and a little bit in 9 as well. But late 2008, I was showed message intercepts, that we got on Al-Qaeda talking to each other, and Al-Qaeda in Iraq communicating to Al-Qaeda Central in Pakistan, don't son any more brothers. This war is over. We have lost. And they said it multiple times in different phrases over 3 or 4 message intercepts that we had. They had admitted that defeat, that they were done. We pulled the troops out totally in 2011. A week after the last troops left, General Caslin told me, he was the commander in charge then in 2011 in December. A week after that, the first bombs began to go off in downtown Baghdad, and they continued ever since. And obviously, they moved into Syria and then back into Iraq. The other opportunity, Megan, is in Libya. We deposed Gaddafi. We had a moderate regime that took over that was friendly to the United States. They wanted one thing from us: help us produce an effective security force so we can deal with the armed militants. We refused. As a result of that, they tried to kill the UK ambassador. They killed our ambassador. They burned our consulate to the ground, killed 3 others, and now they are dominating Libya in its entirety, the radical Islamic movement. We refused to assist them. Imagine that. We did the same thing with the Free Syrian Army. Megan, our viewers may forget, when the moderate rebels were in the streets demonstrating against Assad like people were doing in Egypt, Assad came down heavy on them. But the rebels had so many, they gained the momentum. They were,
there was a chance. There was a chance to help sort of the doctor-lawyer rebels when they were pushing against Assad, and we blew it. And we set red lines that we let them cross, and we lost credibility in Syria. You laid it out, but we missed opportunities to stifle, as I say, this cancer of radical Islamic jihadists. And the reason is, the question is, why? Why? I mean, one of the things that Flynn said today is that the belief now of some of this administration is passivity is less likely to provoke. Doesn't that get to the very heart of it?
Yeah, it's part of it. You know, I have my own words to express it. I say that this administration has been paralyzed by the fear of adverse consequences in the Middle East, driven by the realities of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. So they're totally handcuffed in terms of establishing a strategy, a vision, and a desire to solve the problems that are put on the table in front of them. The good thing that's happening now, Megyn, and I think the catalyst of the tragedy in Paris, France, there are a lot of people who are looking at this now, and the result of the beheadings that took place that ISIS did with the Americans and others, and people are questioning this. The testimony today before the Senate Armed Services Committee, it was quite stunning in this fact. There was bipartisan support. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think Jim Mattis and Admiral Fallon would agree with me. There was bipartisan support that we don't have a strategy to deal with this menace that's growing in front of us, and we better put something together to deal with it.
General Keane, I read your entire testimony. You said to those today about all those generals testifying before them, we are very direct, we are very straightforward, and we sure as hell are opinionated. And we sure thank you for your service and for your frank assessment. Great to see you, General.